This is your Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, co-host John Andrew Williams, hosting together here with Raj Anderson, who is back after, is it 2 weeks? Looks like it's been 2 weeks.
I think it's been 3 because we had Thanksgiving off as well.
Okay. So here we are. We're back in it, and we have I think we have 3 or 4 questions queued up that I am psyched to get to. So, Raj, you want what's the first? Well, first off, let's start with this question. Away 3 weeks, what was the main thing you learned about yourself in the last 3 weeks?
Great question, John. I think the biggest thing I learned about myself is that sometimes just push myself a little bit too hard. You know me, John, bit of a workaholic. And I think we've talked about this before, about taking care of yourself. And I think I just let it go a little bit too far because I did get a bit ill when I was supposed to be relaxing. It all caught up with me. So I think I just learned that even sometimes when I think I'm being intentional, I should take it up a notch a bit, and I got to put myself first.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
What about you?
I keep having cascading revelations of who I am, if that makes sense. And especially my last week, my parents were in town, which was good. And it's always helpful. I feel like we don't live close enough that they come visit on too regular of a basis, but a couple, a handful of times a year maybe. And it feels like milestones. It's like a mirror. You get to see yourself sometimes and see how far you've developed, your parents have developed. It's, it's good. And so I think one of the things I've realized is that I really, really like getting into research. And I've been reading again positive psychology research on the future self, and it feeds me in a deep way. So yeah, I'm feeling psyched about all of that, and more just feeling more engaged about the coaching process. I tried out a new kind of exercise this morning, and it went well. And so I'm feeling really good about all of this. And here we are, right, doing this thing. Yeah, let's do first question.
Okay. Yeah. To move on. I'm taking with the language you use, John, though. I have to say cascading revelations. I'm not going to forget that. A wonderful way of saying that. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the question. What pitfalls surprised you in starting your coaching practice that no one warned you about?
Well, for me, well, I think part of it is there's in developing your own coaching practice, it's hard. Like there's just no way around it. But that's sort of like the known thing. People go into it going, yeah, it's going to be hard. And when I was developing it, I came directly from undergrad, college, back to teaching high school, even before I graduated college. So to me, it felt like college was this interruption of being in high school, first as a student, then as a teacher, kind of thing. So it was very compressed. And then when I started my coaching practice, I literally started with just only the experience of a high school teacher and no business experience. And we didn't have anything to lose. Just like, all right, let's jump in, let's try it. Main pitfall was not quite understanding that the hardest part of this challenge would be myself and managing my own energy, my own levels of motivation, focus. All of that was without a skill set of, without a structure in place, without going into a workplace. That's hard, especially when you're faced with the stress and pressure of money and having to make it. At first, I'd read a lot of news articles. I'd get lost in that. Then I'd get lost in football. And then I realized that's not a good use of my time, and just not that into it for a variety of reasons. And then it became chess was my outlet. And then that sort of stuck. And that sort of, once I could refine my like mental escape to be confined in about 20-minute segments, and something that's doesn't lead me down too many rabbit holes, that's then it started to click and work like on a deep level. But it took me about 5 years to figure that out. And I think the largest pitfall is just keeping the ability to stay focused on hard things and doing that mental, emotional work, making phone calls and following up with people while at the same time taking care of yourself. I think the biggest surprise I experienced is that I think self-care and motivation, I felt like should only be maybe 5% of our work, but it's more like 50% when you're an entrepreneur. And that's hard. There's no way around it. What about for you, Raj?
I can resonate with some similar things there. Time management, feeling the pressure of, just it's initially could be, me, myself, and I. And I was thinking about when you were speaking, actually, nobody warned me about making sure that I had good support systems in place and a good structure of that in place, and how lonely it can be if you don't have a good network. Think about, I moved from the UK to the US, and I went to an office every day. I was part of a support system with the organization that I was with. And then suddenly I decide I'm going to launch my coaching business. And I think, and I moved to a new country, even though we speak the same language, and how lonely that was at times for me. And having that pressure of, you're the admin, you're the coach, the CEO, the founder, the marketer, all of those things. And I think initially one of my pitfalls might have been my ego and not asking for help, or not being as open as I could have been. And I think what I've learned through that journey is really important to surround yourself with like-minded people. Like, this is why I love being part of Coach Training EDU, even though I do have my own coaching practice, because it gives me something to bounce off of. It helps me with motivation. I speak to a lot of great trainers and coaches, and we mastermind together. And no one really explained any of that to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think having that support system is absolutely crucial. Like it makes the difference in a lot of ways. I had it built in with Amois because she had already started her coaching practice before I did. So I got to see it first from like the, cheering her on perspective before I did it. And that was helpful. I mean, it was really helpful to have someone, in-house basically who has done the same thing you're trying to do. Yeah. There were months when we had maybe 3 weeks of money left. And when you're staring at 3 weeks of money left and knowing that you have to perform at this, you have 2 or 3 events coming up where you're presenting and you have to get a client, from these 2 or 3 events. I mean, that's pressure. That's a lot. And being able to hold that space of trust that if you work your system, it's going to work out, had taught me a lot about where I have to place my focus. And now looking back, I'm really thankful for that experience. I mean, I don't know of any other experience, coach training experience, yes, but entrepreneurship is a whole nother experience that grows people. Yeah, I'm now very thankful for that experience.
you
Yeah.
still have to be really courageous and take risks with all of that pressure on. So, you know, the other thing nobody, I would guess, warn me about is that I would have to be more courageous than I'd probably been ever before, because I did have the comfort blanket of being part of an organization and there was that safety net there.
Mhm.
And now you are going out and you're selling your business and you're selling you have to be confident in yourself. So I think it goes back to that. You've got to make time for that self-care when you work for yourself.
Right. Right. And treat it as an important aspect of what you're doing too. You know, it's like it's part of the, like, you know, your morning routine is part of your business plan. That's what I would. Yeah, and then throw in all sorts of things like kids or puppies, and then you got a real party going.
Well, John, what a great segue into our next question. You just mentioned the business plan. So the next question is, what are some things to consider when developing a coaching business plan?
Mm-hmm. I think the hardest thing, I think, in new coaches is trying to figure out, who do I coach? Like, what's my specialty? What do I do? And there's a lot of value in trying out a couple, or, you know, having a specialty that is very circumscribed, where it's a lot of focus. I think it's hard sometimes for new coaches to do that, because they feel like you're excluding whole populations when you have such a strong specialty. So I think there's a way to keep that specialty. You know, let's say I work with high school sophomores who are looking to develop a project or do something outside of high school. Right? Let's say that's my specialty. Core to that, working with that group might be helping people work on their passion project and balance what they have to do for their job or their work. Right. So then there's an audience specific specialty, and then you have this, you know, context less. I don't know. You have this general specialty of what your group most needs, and then so if I were starting out, I would do both. I would have, you know, my business plan would be, okay, here, this is the specific audience I target, and this is the more global or general emotion set, or, you know, this is the more general thing that I also work with. Those would be the two nets that I would cast. And I think the business plan needs to basically center around, how can I be sustainable in delivering value for free to my target audience through the, you know, workshops? Is it a workbook? Is it something pre-recorded, handouts, networking with other people who share similar target audiences? Whatever it is, like, how can you sustainably deliver value to that group and keep your, you know, your current client, your practice moving at the same time? People who can do both of those things, that's the plan. That's the plan. That's all you have to do. You know, I mean, that's all. It's a huge to do. But if those are the things that, when you find the answer to that question, then you can start to take next steps. And for me, it was my client growth was very, like, it was linear. It was very, you know, well, not linear, like as in low. It was like a slow thing, and then it had an exponential curve. And once it started going exponential, I realized, yeah, like, get ready. You know, you're going to have to create systems to keep track of clients, invoicing, appointments, all of those things. But I wouldn't worry about that yet. It's not the main thing. That will come. The main question to ask yourself is, how can I sustainably deliver value?
Okay, John. So I was hearing about that the vision and the mission and target audience. One of the things I'd like to add, you know, thinking about business plan as well, and I kind of learned this through experience and when I'm talking to coaches now, is think about adding a section on building relationships and how do you want to leverage existing relationships. What relationships are you looking to create? Because we all know that you might need to have a look at a marketing plan. But one of the things that has helped me a lot in business is having, a network and having conversations. And we remember that people do business with people that they like. And this was one of the biggest challenges for me when I moved to the US was I didn't have a network. I didn't have any connections. When I was in the UK, and I know if I had said, I'm going out on my own, I'm going to be a coach, or I'm going to do consulting, there's so many people that I could have picked up the phone to as well. Either as a mentor or guidance, or even, what are your thoughts? And then I didn't have that when I moved to the US. So one of the things I encourage people to do is really have a look at what are the relationships you need to build and who do you need to be speaking to, and what could you leverage even from the environment that you're in now. I mean, I talk a lot about executive coaching because that's the arena that I'm in a lot, but I think it work anywhere. So I was thinking about that and where people should add that in the business plan. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, networking is huge. I didn't understand what it was at first. And I got this book, I think it was 47 tips or power networking, something like this. And it was, I remember the thing that really jumped out at me was that the definition of networking and or the definition as I understood it and still think about it is the giving and receiving of information of what you need and what the other person needs, right? What you're looking for and what the other person's looking for. So this definition is really useful because it provides a structure for when you're having these conversations with people. But so it's the giving and receiving of information. What is it you really need? And that's a coaching question. That is a coaching question. And it's also being really clear on what is it that the other person can provide you. And I think a lot of coaches make the mistake when they're networking to try to get those people to be clients. It's not. You don't want the people you're networking with to become clients. You want the people you're networking with to provide pathways for you to have workshops or for them to refer clients to you. So what you're really after are referral networks. You're after pathways and referrals. Those are the big wins. You're not after the actual stepping stones, the actual particles. You're after a sustainable path. So once I understood that, I felt like networking for me became fun. It became having mini coaching sessions. What is it you really want? What is it you really need? What would help your business get to the next level? These are the things. These are the questions to ask.
I'm all right to keep going for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. The only other thing I would add to this might sound, let's say, it's not boring, but a practical tip for people to think about when you're creating that business plan as well, especially if you're new to running your own business or you're new to being an entrepreneur, is you will need a small budget for operating costs. And I think sometimes people can forget that. And even though there's add things at a later stage, there's so many free things out there, isn't there, John? I mean, there's free, you can use all kinds of free resources, and even schedulers are free until a certain point. But I think just even being mindful and aware initially, what's the small budget that I might have for operating costs, such as registering, a LLC or a business, or, any fees. And what I'd say is there's so many things that you can do on your own as well. I mean, you can get membership with Law Depot for contracts and things. You don't have to hire an attorney or anything. But I think sometimes when I'm speaking to coaches, because it's so new, they've forgotten to allocate, whatever budget it is that they might need to put in there for those operating costs, website. And there's smart ways around all of this. You might do an exchange of service with someone who's going to create your website. I've done that before and coach them. But I think it's being mindful of some of those things and being smart with it as well, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's fairly easy right now to put together a 2 or 3 page website. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on websites at the beginning. I didn't until I got later, later in the game, I started to more and more. I think, the business plan at the beginning is very easy. It's how can I provide value to a certain sector of the population? And when you ask yourself, how can I provide value? It crystallizes the next action step. And the hardest parts about starting out is knowing, like, what is it you have to do? Or, you don't even know, you don't know all the things that you actually need to do. So just finding that out and taking time is useful. But again, it really comes down to you need to provide value. So did you do it today or not? And if you didn't, then what do you need to do to, the next day to do it? And getting involved, getting networking, asking clarifying questions is a way of providing value. It's almost like a one-to-one correlation. Like, the more value you can provide, the more you're going to be rewarded. And the rewards will come if you're delivering value. That's the trust. That's the trust.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, when I first started my coaching business, and I would offer a complimentary call, and I would be advised to do it for 15 minutes maximum. And I used to do an hour's complimentary coaching call. That no right or wrong, but it's just what I chose to do. And I think I went into it not having the fear, and I was going to just offer the coaching, be in that space. And 95% of the time, somebody wanted to sign up immediately because they had experienced value. And it wasn't just a 15-minute sales call where I was trying to convince them of the value of coaching. They actually experienced coaching in it. And I'm so glad I used that model versus what I kept being told, because I didn't feel comfortable at that time with just gathering some data and trying to upsell someone. As I said, no right or wrong, but it's just what I experienced and the feedback I got. And people would be like, okay, well, how do I sign up now? Because they experienced it right there.
Yeah, that's it. So go forth, create value, and then be nice. Be okay.
So final question, John, in similar lines of questioning, what would you say are the top 3 challenges then that new coaches face?
It's a lot like finding that, like, optimal hunger zone. Like, what is it's like the earth, it lives in this very small habitable zone of the sun. If it's too close, it burns up. If it's too far away, it freezes over. So I think when a new coach has to figure out, how can I find that space for myself? Like, do I have to balance this with a full-time job, a part-time job? Like, how can I create a balanced life that I am hungry enough to get the business going, like find that inner motivation to take the uncomfortable steps, to go to the 7 a.m. networking events 2 or 3 times a week, and then do the 7 p.m. networking events that you need or connect with people, make those phone calls. Like, how can you find that space that you need to that you're taking those uncomfortable steps, but it's not so uncomfortable that the uncomfort overwhelms you. It's finding that sweet spot. That's what I found it to be the key for myself. And then finding that sweet spot internally as well that's a big one. That's a big one. And then finding a way to keep everything organized, and then really working on your relationship with money. And what I found is the absolute best is that I notice that my anxiety levels around finances go up when I think of terms of level 1 myself. My anxiety around finances goes away almost completely when I think about, no, this is what I was born to do. This is the mission. This is what I'm here on this planet to do in this time and space and history. Let's do it. And finding that and finding ways to remind yourself of that. Yeah, that's the good stuff. Yeah, that's winning. That's winning. There was 3, right?
Yeah.
I think it's support network. You got to find other coaches who are in similar spots and find ways to connect with your, your classmates, your people, and to do it in a way that helps move yourself and them forward. Yeah, those would be the 3. What would you add, Raj, or modifier?
I feel like you've given responses to the 3 challenges that I was going to put out there that I've heard. So I'm doing a bit back to front, but the challenges that I've heard that come to mind when you coach is number 1, fear of putting yourself out there and real kind of getting stuck with nerves and imposter and inner critic. And I think John's been providing some strategies and ideas for us there with that. You've got to push yourself, you've got to take care of yourself. All of that, I think, with the business plan helps. Number 2, I think challenges new coaches face, and I hear this all the time, is how do I price my services, and how do I package up the offer? And I think sometimes it's really easy to get too tied up in what you think your hourly rate should be as a coach, and researching and reading this, that, and the other. And should I be putting, does this determine my value as a human being, as a person, if my hourly rate isn't $250 or $300? I hear that in executive coaching world. And I would encourage people to let some of that go. And, as a starting point, I think it's okay to keep your prices approachable and affordable for your clients as you build up your own skill set and you build up the people that are going to work with you. And your value is not determined by your hourly rate. So I think that can tie up people sometimes. And then I think the third one is a challenge that I hear from coaches is they can struggle to really articulate who they are, what they offer, what coaching is. And I think that goes back to some of the things you were kind of guiding us with, and even the business plan. I think if you spend a bit of time with that business plan and really thinking about who you're going to speak to, that will prevent you from getting tongue-tied or feeling pressure. And I always encourage people to think about that elevator pitch. You've got 30 seconds or a minute in an elevator with someone. How would you capture those key things around what you do and what you offer?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember starting out, and when I was starting out, I had to really explain what life coaching was, what life coaching is. And I don't think coaches now have to do that starting out. I think a lot of time it's known what a life, I mean, you still have a little bit of that. I mean, even my neighbor, he's like, I still don't know what exactly you do. And I'm like, that's great. Because I mean, I don't really feel, I don't really know how to explain coaching in ways that it just is so far outside some people's paradigm that it's like, okay, it's okay for them not to know what it is. Like, it's okay for you to feel stress about finances. It's okay to feel like all these feels, like that's part of it. It feels like of course, but when you're in it, I know I still do, I get doomy and gloomy about it. I mean, it's hard. But yeah, understanding that, embracing that, finding ways to use the hard to your advantage is a useful, it's a very empowering perspective. And that's what I mean about that habitable zone. You need to find use the challenge as a motivator. And if you can do that, you're golden. I had a dear high school friend. We were just a couple years out of college. I was visiting him in Connecticut, and I had this jacket I loved. It was like one of those purchases that Amois and I led one of my first corporate workshops, and I got paid. I think it was like $1,500 for this weekend or something like this. And I was so like over the moon happy. We celebrated by buying ourselves outfits that we had, kind of like future self outfits. I love this jacket. Go visit my buddy, and I left my jacket at at one of the restaurants or at some point along the evening, like, and the next morning, like, wait, I don't have my jacket. Where is it? I thought I was here. Like, what? So woo! My buddy comes in, tell him, hey, I lost my jacket. He says, you know what? That is just the cost of doing business, the CBD, the cost of doing business. And when you can accept the cost of doing business, to accept that there's going to be waste, there's going to be ouches, there's going to be things that don't work out. And you can either spend time really like thinking, well, why didn't I get my business plan perfect? Why didn't I keep a better, like, I wanted, why couldn't I kept a better eye on that jacket? Why couldn't I have like done that or done this? Let it go. Boom. You just got to let it go and chalk it up to the cost of doing business. And this is the entrepreneurial mindset. I think, Amois and I've talked, we talk about this among our, one of the concepts that we talk a lot about is when you step into building your own coaching practice, you have to let go of the fixed income mindset. You have to let go of everything I can save, I earn. That's not always the case. You have to start thinking in terms of how can I adopt a growth income mindset, which involves risks, which involves, a growth mindset around like what you need to spend, what you need to save, but to really, the cost of doing business, move on. Cost of doing business, move on. And having a job there's usefulness in that too. The stability of that is real. There's value in the stability of landing a job that you feel fulfilled in. And both paths, this wildly, growth income mindset, entrepreneurship path of peril is, viable. But also if you are in a fixed income, with a job, that's okay too. But it's just knowing which mindset you're in, you can adapt to, is extremely useful. And that cost of doing business idea, I can't tell you how many times throughout the years, cost of doing business. Move on, provide value.
Are you going to tell us you found your jacket?
No, lost forever.
Guess it served its purpose.
I see jackets that remind me of it, but I just smile and, give it a little, yeah, and just move on. Nope, gone forever. Gone forever.
Do you think it's a good place to stop, John?
Yeah, this makes sense.
So we do this one next week.
Yeah. Let's do one next week. I feel it. Like the new coaches, like it's real. The challenge is real, and it's not, but it's worth it. And that's what's cool about it, is that there's the level of fulfillment in those coaching sessions is worth it. And to feel like you're making a difference in the world, all those kinds of things, wouldn't change it. Let's stop here.
Okay. Brilliant.
Not even mind all the interruptions, Raj, the garbage truck, the train, the dog, the phone that keeps going off, all part of the mix. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoy being back and connecting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So same time next week. Thank you all for watching this, and we'll see you in a week.
See you in a week. Bye.